Welcome to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Our mission is to bring you discussions on a wide array of topics in the coaching world to grow players on and off the court. You can connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and also reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Now, here's your host, Coach Mike Hernandez.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us here for another episode, wherever in the world you are listening to us from, whatever platform you're listening to us on. Thank you guys so much for the support. Thanks for sharing this podcast with those who you know. Thanks for giving the likes. Thanks for leaving the feedback and the messages. Really appreciate it, and please make sure to keep those coming. Today's episode is a little bit different because I wanted to talk with this guest in particular because they have kind of a unique role in the basketball journey. You know, obviously for the most of my interviews, I'll talk to coaches, people involved in things in that sense. But I have a unique opportunity today to talk to somebody who covers and spotlights and brings attention to the high school players in the great state of Arizona, which is also a bonus for me. And I wanted to have this conversation with this guest and talk about the work that he does, what he specifically does in terms of spotlighting high school players, and also how we as coaches and even players can help spotlight each other and bring attention to the great things that are going on, because I know that that's something that a lot of coaches really want to do. They really want to show off and they really want to bring attention to some of the great things they see going on in their area. And I wanted to talk about the work that my guest does regarding those sort of things. So this will be a real cool, unique episode, but I think one that might offer some insights to a different part of the basketball world. So my guest today, I'm going to call him Coach, as I told him off air, because that's just what I'm used to doing. But he is a coach, and he is also a contributor for ArizonaPreps. I'm very happy to be joined by Travis Armstrong. Thank you so much for joining us, Coach. How are we doing?
We're doing great. Appreciate you having me on. Look forward to talking with you here for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Really looking forward to this. And like I said, it's a bonus for me that you're located out in Arizona too. So that's like an extra bonus for me. So I know that you got a couple of journeys, because I know that coaching has been a part of your journey in the past. But I'm curious about that, as well as what got you into the contributions that you now do for ArizonaPreps. What's the basketball journey been like that's gotten you to where you're at right now?
Well, I got like a lot of people. I got into coaching because, you know, the small town where my kids were playing needed volunteers, and you know, I just end up making some time to be that guy who could put in some time for these kids to be able to play. And so if you're going to put in the time, you know, better learn how to help these kids get better at it. And might as well not just be a person filling a spot. So my kids grew up over the years, and I helped coach, I mean, everything from little league to soccer. And you know, it just kept being one of those deals where all the kids needed an assistant. And I ended up getting a call up from a guy I know who just got a girls varsity position, head coach for the basketball team at Florence High School, Bob Bellamere. And I'd known him as my kids grew up through the junior high ranks, and he asked if I'd be interested in being an assistant. And I said, well, you know, let's get together and talk about it. Because, like, to me, I like a certain amount of a principle to it. Like, I believe that coaching, you're helping these kids become, like, you're going to help them grow in life as well, grow as a person, not just as an athlete. And I believe that a lot of times a coach has an opportunity to reach a kid on a level that parents sometimes could struggle with. It's just a different dynamic. And so he was on the same page with me as far as, like, you know, we just both linked up and meshed pretty well. And we had the similar drive for the same purposes. We wanted to do it. And so we just started coaching. And we had a couple, you know, like most places, when you take over, you get those first couple of years can be kind of rough. You know, we struggled a lot, and we got a program just finally started turning around where we had our, you know, our upperclassmen that we kind of inherited, you know, had graduated, and, you know, we set a reasonable tone for everything. We got a nice young class of kids who just wanted to play ball. And as we started going along there, I learned more about these kids. You know, everything's not D1. Everything's not like, if you really want, you have the right attitude. These kids, they can find a spot to hoop somewhere in the country. And us as coaches, I think every program should have one of the coaches at least who's very aware that these coaches should be helping these kids be on the radar, because they can extend their careers and get free college, have more life, a few more years, 1 more year, 4 more, 5 more years. I talked to a kid the other day that was actually been in college for 6 years and finishing up her last year of eligibility this year. It just worked out.
Yeah.
Going to have a master's degree. You can't beat that. And so that's kind of my journey has been, along the way coaching. I learned that, like, Kayla Fuhrman was one of my favorite kids I ever coached. She was a rebound, 5'9", probably at best. The girl set rebounding records in the state because she just went hard every play. She just went with whatever she had. And so I got out of coaching for a little bit, and Anthony Ray of ArizonaPreps, I've known him for a little while, and he said, help me get some of the girls' side. We've done mostly the guys program for years, report on these guys, shine the spotlight on these players. And I know girls basketball. He said, help me get this part going. And I love Anthony. Anthony Ray is about as good a guy as they come. And I told him, sure thing. And so threw my hat in the ring a little bit, helped get him going, and got some other people on it now too. And I'd love to cast a spotlight on these kids who may be overshadowed by like these top D1, get all the attention. Like, guess what? I don't need to really tell you a whole lot about certain kids who are already getting recruited heavy by Division I. They've already got the attention. Yeah. But, you take a girl from I'm friends with Lee Hawes of Fort Thomas. They're a small little school. They just missed the state championship again this year. I mean, they played for it, just missed a little bit. They won last year. I mean, he's got a hell of a program. He's a good dude. And things like that. Not a lot of people are going to look at a 1A school and say, oh, yeah, we want that. No, but it's there. He's got some young ladies that can hoop, and that's kind of my drive, is to help these kids who otherwise might not get attention or get a shot that deserve it.
Yeah, no, I think that's great, and especially like you said, some of these smaller schools, these 1A or 2A schools, where there's a lot of really good basketball going on, but you kind of have to seek it out, or in your case, have somebody bring it to everyone's attention about what's happening there. So no, that's incredibly valuable. And one of the other things I was curious about was, in what way has your experience having coached before kind of shape the way that you kind of go about your work at ArizonaPreps right now? Like, how do you kind of see things or kind of approach your work with the experience you've had of having coached basketball before?
That's a good question. So with our what happened at our high school was our head coach, because I was a varsity assistant and I would run JV at times, and I did a lot of the skill development. Our head coach, Florence is a small school. He was hired to also be the softball coach. So, if high school sports, if you make the playoffs, some of your kids are not going to make it to softball practice. It's that, they run right over each other. So, those first couple of years, especially, we didn't necessarily make the playoffs much. That we had a couple of first round exits. And so he was like a cannon shot over the softball field. And I took over our off-season program. And, obviously we communicated very well, but I carried out the physical, our off-season stuff. And I would reach out to, any coach I knew reasonably in the area, say, hey, coach, our program doesn't have a lot of money, but you know what? I got a van and I got kids who want to play basketball. And I would set up games for the kids to hoop. And I'm talking anywhere from Fort Thomas, which is a damn near 2-hour drive, to playing against Coolidge, 7, 8, 10 minutes away. And as well as some summer tournaments. And that the group I had that we had down here, we had they just graduated. I mean, our tallest girl of our starting lineup she's probably about 5'6". She played 5. But that group, there was days where that group, I mean, I would drop them off from playing the 7th game that week, and they're like, I'm like, oh, cool, I'll see you girls on Monday. You know, they're like, we ain't gonna play on Saturday. You know, so I ran so much the off season that I would look at some of these kids who if you didn't put in the time in the off season, that these kids are just not going to develop. Or, you know, you miss one day in the gym when you're in a development phase, it takes you 3 to catch that day back. And I fortunately, I made the time. I had about as much time as I wanted, and anybody could stand to be in the gym with me. And we just worked. And so having seen and these are kids, you know, these are kids who, all 5 of these kids had, by the time they graduated, they had the option to go play college basketball. They had coaches who said, please come on out, you know, and it was mostly JUCO, some NAIA stuff, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that level of ball at all. Especially whenever you're talking about, well, my twins were 5 foot, is kind of giving them the benefit of the doubt, but they were 2 of the most aggressive kids. They'd give up 6 to 10 inches against everybody they played against. And after they hit sophomore year on, they never walked away. Even in a lost game, they never walked away losing their battles. You know, these are kids with heart that you can't measure. And so I've seen some of that stuff, and I said, you know, there's kids like this all over. Again, you know, you look at some of these kids who, they might be the toughest kid, you know, talked about in their town, or, you know, but they don't end up going anywhere. And it's because a number of things, but one of the big things is, if these kids don't know they can go somewhere, they don't even put it in their view. It's kind of like, hey, what do you, and I just talked to a girl the other day. I mean, this is a talented ball player. You know, she could definitely play JUCO, NAIA. If she hit the weights right, she could probably step it up to maybe a D3 somewhere. I mean, the girl can hoop though. And she's like, I don't know. I'll probably go to college. And I'm like, you're not going to play ball? Or, I'd like to, but you know, it didn't really register that I can do this. And so I took that mindset and I started talking to more of these kids along the way over the years, and I've helped a few, you know, and I say I help, but all I did was link them up. They put in the work. They do all that. All I'm doing is putting a couple people together. You know, I never got anybody to any school anywhere aside from make some phone calls. That's it. I'm a people person, but if any of these kids didn't play ball hard enough and didn't get the attention and the respect of these coaches, then they wouldn't go anywhere. So they're doing work. But I just saw that so many of these kids don't even really, I don't think it's being shared with them or ingrained in their minds that they can go play somewhere. They can do more things than just settle for going to the JUCO or going to school online. Like, they can accomplish these dreams, but you gotta first have the dream before you can really accomplish it.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, that's something, and I'm sure we'll touch on this a little bit later, you know, for us as coaches, to make sure that we sort of realize that, like, we as coaches also realize that all these opportunities and options are out there. And like you mentioned before about having coaches, you know, make sure that they're connected with, you know, these you know, those JUCOs or those NAIA, because I think sometimes as coaches we may forget that, like, oh, these players do have like this available to them as well, and we have to be the ones, like we kind of talked about, like open the door for them and like let them know that this is an actual possibility for them, and not just assume that they know that that's a possibility for them. Or, you know, as coaches, you know, we have to also trust our players, I think, and recognize the ability that our players have, and make sure that we're encouraging them and really helping them, you know, find those opportunities as well.
Yeah. And real quick, just to kind of circle back on, that's the thing you'll notice if you read any of my articles with Arizona Preps, is like, I'll include some stats, and that's cool, because I mean, obviously it is important. If I talk to coaches, and I talk with different coaches every week, and I mean, stats are important, not for the fact that like if a coach is looking at a couple players and they're trying to figure out if they want to offer somebody, they're going to say, well, man, this such and such, I average 27 points a game and da da da. So I really want that kid. But the same token, a lot of these kids, especially at the levels that aren't, I mean, Division One is really, I mean, so much of it's about a cookie cutter. If you don't fit into that puzzle physically, they don't really look at you. I mean, you got to really be a beast to force your way into Division One. I mean, you really do. You have to be different, committed, and it's got to be something. But everybody's like, well, if I need a guard, that guard needs to be between this size and this size. Yeah. Forward's got to be this and this. But everybody below Division One, it's not really so much about the eye test as much. So I always did that for our high school team too. Is I kept very accurate stats, the best of. I would keep them, and then I would go through and watch film, and I would double check mine to make sure they were as accurate as I could possibly be. For two reasons. I don't inflate stats because that doesn't help a kid. All it does is tarnish what integrity I have behind my name. If I tell a coach, man, you need to check out so-and-so, she's averaging this, this, and this, and then he shows up and God for, I happen to leave out, oh yeah, by the way, she has also 6 turnovers a game all the time. That doesn't help anybody. If you know what you're buying and you're in on it, cool. That's respect. But I took that with these kids and Arizona Preps, like when I write an article, I want to know more about the kid as a character. And I'll talk to the coach. Typically, always I talk to the player and their coach. It could even be an AAU coach, a high school coach, whatever. Somebody who knows that kid and sees that kid in the gym when the lights aren't on, whenever the spotlight's not on them, when they're just playing. And, it makes a difference. I don't just want to sit here and tell you what these stats. Anybody can go look up Max Preps and say, who's the highest scorer? Cool, we want that kid. That doesn't translate. I want to know about that kid. I've had a couple in the past where the kids have actually opened up to me about some stuff that was just kind of like personal, nothing crazy, but like definitely personal. Yeah. I let them tell that story. I'll leave it, as like, you've had some struggles in personal life, and leave it there. If they want to share that the way social media is now, anybody can reach out and tell their story. That's their place, not mine. But I definitely like to include, I try to find something to show more about that kid's character along the way as well. And sure, the numbers will be there. I'll pump in, toward the end or wherever. There's the numbers, average this and this, cool. But this is who this person is. So I think that's a very big part of, you want to, if I want to bet money, I'd like to know if some person has character.
Yeah. And
money.
I think that's one of the things, right, that like can't necessarily just be shown up on like a stat line, right? Like what, like the character and like the journey. And I think that, you can speak to this. I'm just thinking of my personal experience that it's so easy to get lost in a bunch of like stats and a bunch of numbers, especially if you're like looking at like a bunch of different players or looking at like different teams, and you just see numbers on a page, and it's, I think it's really important, as you mentioned, to kind of have the human element involved in that, because there is a person behind all of those numbers, and knowing like who they are, and knowing what their journey is, and knowing what they're about, more on that intangible side, like it just makes it so that they're actual people and not just like numbers on a page, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Well, one of the first players I coached that went to play college ball was a girl. Again, her name's Kayla Fuhrman. She plays for Arizona Christian. Now, she went up there and she's a prime example of what you see a lot of times at high schools. She was an absolute physical powerhouse at 3A. And so she played 4 or 5 for us. And I tried to get her to keep working her shot, work her handles and stuff like that, because going to college, a lot of these 4s and 5s are not going to play 1 or very small minutes at college level at 4 and 5. Why? Because they're 5'8", 5'9". They're the toughest we got. But that doesn't give away whenever you're going to play against everybody out there who's a 4 or 5 in your conference that's 6'2". And she played up there. She's about to graduate this year from Arizona Christian. I believe she's been the GSAC all academic team for 4 years in a row. You know, you don't see that on Max Preps or one of these other sites that shows stats. You know, you don't see that when, as a college institution, like a higher learning institution, that's huge for them because they're going to be competitive and athletically, and that's fine. But they're actually showing academic excellence too, and that's big for them. So it's like, I know she got a pretty good academic scholarship. So it shows that their investments are worthwhile too. So that's like an intangible, like, not everybody talks about things like that,
Yeah.
and
Go ahead.
it really shows more about the character. That kid could have coasted by with a C and been good. No, she pushed herself. She's one of those kids who will keep a full-time job, plays basketball, has obviously grades, and those are big because a kid like that, I think, will always be successful in life.
Yeah.
Because it shows they're not just doing just enough to get where they want to go. They're doing enough to be good anywhere they want to go.
And I think that has to probably speak to, these collegiate programs, they're putting a certain level of trust, right, in having these players be a part of their program, and they're taking a chance on these players by giving them that opportunity. So knowing how seriously they take their academics, knowing about how high their character is almost like, I would imagine, like a reassurance for those colleges. Like, okay, we're not just getting like a basketball player who might be a bit of a head case, or might be somebody who's not going to represent our school well, but actually like all around, like well-rounded like student athlete.
If I ever go to call a coach, if I'm talking to a coach, I won't bash a kid. I really won't. I'll defer from talking about him, or I'll kind of, politely change the subject or whatever. I mean, several times I've had kids that weren't necessarily bad people. They're not out here doing stick-ups and being crazy, but gobs of talent, but not willing to put in the work to graduate high school or keep the grades that would get you into the college that was trying to get you to play for them and things like that. And I mean, I really hate to see it, because a lot of these kids that are very top level, or at least above, the higher level athletes, that just, number of reasons, they just don't really achieve what they could be doing. I hate to see it, but it's part of life. Unfortunately, some people have a situation that, may not be optimal. Two kids, one may have a great home, one may have a kind of a tough time at home. One, hopefully through team sports, you kind of build a bridge for some of these kids, and you give them an outlet that they can, home life might suck, and that's so unfortunate. It happens. A lot of kids I've coached come from, single parent homes, whatever the case may be. It's not always bad, as far as like, doesn't make the home life bad per se, but some of these kids come from such different backgrounds, but they link up together, and it helps. They kind of each help each other grow as an individual, I think. And, some of these rural towns, you get different areas have different kind of obstacles to overcome. And I like the fact that team sports can help so many kids, and has helped so many kids, just help kind of dull their lesser, like, let's say some of your negative traits. It kind of helps kind of round the edge off of those that are not so sharp.
Yeah.
And
Smooth those
help
out
you
a little
kind of
bit.
rise to the top with your good characteristics, and
Sure.
you see it all the time. Some kid who might be just in bad shape in a lot of ways, as far as not really know how to have manners. That's a big thing we pushed early on. Was Bob said, what, ladies, we're going to dress like business professionals. So when we traveled, they either wore, a business type setup. You could wear like a suit, a pantsuit. You wear a dress. You could wear team warm-ups. Like, that's kind of it. Like, when we go places, we're going to look professional, because when you get out of high school and you're going to college, or you're going to a job interview, or whatever the case may be, when you go to these certain things, you're going there to show people that you're professional and you want to impress them. And then honestly, it made a big deal. We had a lot of coaches in schools that were like, wow, we're really impressed with your ladies. They come in, they're respectful, they're this and that. And, I got a message from a girl just the other day. I'd coached her a few years ago, and, hey, coach, I'm doing this way. Kind of gave me an update of how she's been. You mind if I put your name down for a job I'm trying to get? Absolutely no problem. Put it down. Here's any info you need. That means a lot to me. But it also, to me, it shows a trust level we were able to make between us, that kid respects me enough to say you would be a good person to put on for a reference. Also, I can count on you just by reaching out. And some of these kids don't have that. So that's a coach. A coach has an opportunity to be that person for kids that don't have it but need it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and that there's a lot, and I've talked about this with other guests as well. Like there's just so much more that goes into just the sport of coaching rather than just the X's and O's. Of course, they're fun and we love doing that, but all the other things that we get to do and all the other great like life lessons and things that we can share with our players too to help them grow up to be great adults, I think is also just as much, if not even more rewarding. Well, I know it's more rewarding, but it's a real cool opportunity that we have. And I wanted to ask about, I know we touched on this a little bit, but there is no necessarily one size fits all model, especially for all of the players looking to go play at the next level. There's a couple things that I know you mentioned in terms of like work ethic and the way that they carry themselves, but I was wondering if there are there any other attributes from your time spotlighting high school players that you notice that players have in common, or even coaches have in common with the way that they work with their players to kind of coach them to get ready to play at a higher level?
Yes, you see a lot of different. I've noticed this, and I know times have changed, and it's weird because I'm going to make myself sound older than I am, but a lot of kids have changed these days. Like, I personally do not accept kids on the court with headphones, earpods, whatever, AirPods. I don't. When you're on the court, it's game time. That's it.
Yeah.
You see some kids come out and they're ready to go. I mean, they'll walk in there just before tip off, and you can see they can just turn it on. What we found with our team was they are a lot of times late starters. You have the ugly first quarter or first half, and you just light it up in the second half. Mm-hmm. So we started getting our kids, especially at home, whenever you had gym access, because fortunately Florence has amazing facilities. But we would get them going about 30 minutes before the game, like a full game time warm up, layup lines, jump shots, all that stuff. Yeah. We kind of got their bodies and their minds woke up. So every game we played at home, we played a game and a half, because we would give them about a legit 30 minutes warm up before the game. And so obviously all kids are, everybody's different. And some of these kids can come in and just turn it on. I was just watching basketball. I watched about 15 games last weekend down at the new Legacy facilities. Mm-hmm. And these kids, I literally, I watched them walk across the whole gym, sit down, lace up their shoes, kind of do a little half stretch for literally maybe 2 minutes, go out there and just light it up, ready to go. And then I see other kids who seriously just, they kind of, tournaments and that kind of thing. A lot of times you don't have room to really get super warm. It took them about 5 minutes into the game before they were running full speed, before they were jumping, bouncing and just doing everything. And I think on the direct right in game time aspect, there's a lot of different ways you go about it. And I found personally for us, my personal experience hands-on and the coaches I worked with, that get them going a little early, get that head right. So even if you get a good hot sweat going before the game, take 5 minutes before the game, cool back off, get some drink, but your body's ready. It's almost like being in the game and coming in for a timeout or, a sub. Cool, coach, I'm good, I'm ready to go. And you're focused, you're on. And I know some coaches, I decided I'm a kind of a person. I'm pretty good about, I try to play devil's advocate all the time and try to be able to see both sides of things. And so I've had kids over the years who they need an abrasive, just chew you out kind of coach who wasn't going to, hold you super accountable and like be in your face. And I've had kids who are not about that. They will shut down. And what I've tried to do is, because I've played for both and I've seen both and everywhere in between. And I try to be a little bit more in between, where it's like I know what kid I try to know my personnel. So if I got little Susie over here who needs that abrasive, like almost like physically challenge you to go do something, kind of like talk. That's how we treat each other. And if I got the zone over here who needs a little bit of a pat on the back, like come on now, that's how I treat that kid for the most part.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I know a lot of coaches who play both ways. One of my favorite coaches in the world, he coaches the boys AAU team. My man, Coach Eric Hood, he coaches Team RHJ. And that dude he's from North Philly. He doesn't sugarcoat it. He's going to tell you. He'll be the first one to pick you up on the court, and he'll be the first one to tell you, you're messing up.
Yeah.
And, it works. Sometimes other coaches who are a little too soft, their players don't respect them. Their players don't hold them accountable. It's a shame. There's coaches out there I've dealt with that they don't believe in stats. They don't believe in anything. They just say, well, if you play good enough, you'll get noticed and things will happen. And I'm not a passive person like that. Like, to me, you're not helping a kid. You either are or you aren't, you're all in, or else you're just a standby kind of guy or girl, or, it's one of those things where you got to be engaged. I'm not, when I coach a game, you don't even see me stand up all the time. I mean, I'll be talking to my players. If I scream and yell at a kid in a game, it's a right now thing. I'm not going to sit here and scream at how to run the play during the game. We've been over it all week in the gym or the last month or whatever. I'm a lot more emotional in the practice gym than I am in the game, because let that kid play, seriously. And I've seen so many different aspects that, like, I'm kind of a soft spoken person normally. And, I'm bigger than a lot of people. I'm about 6'5", 6'6", about 300 pounds, maybe 3 1/4 these days, to be honest with you. But I just don't, it's one of those things that, seriously, you just knowing your people. That's my biggest thing I wish coaches would do, is know your people, because it's really hard in the high school level. At college, you can kind of get away with it, because if you're doing recruiting, you just recruit people that are going to fit with how you coach. That's fine.
Sure.
But in high school, you got kids who, you might have a kid on your team who gets screamed at every day of their life. And so screaming is nothing big to them. It doesn't get their attention.
Yeah, it's just normal talk at that point, right?
Yeah, and I've seen it. You have some kids who, as soon as you raise their voice, they're almost flinchy. And that, to me, it's unfortunate as hell. And I try to figure it out, but that's really generally not good at all.
Yeah.
But, because that usually means that somebody's getting carried away at home. But, sometimes you got to yell. That's just how it is. I mean, that's part of the game, no doubt.
Right.
But
one of the things you mentioned was about, coaches have to do work on their end to, you said you're either all in or you're all out, and they have to do work to really make sure that they're putting their players in the best position, especially those that have the ability, the work ethic, the drive, and can play, past high school. And I'm curious, in particular, for those coaches listening who maybe work in more smaller or more rural areas where, there's not maybe necessarily going to be like a lot of attention like there would be maybe in like a big city. What can those, either the coaches or the players, like what in general can they do specifically to get their players noticed and on some coaches' radars if they're in a smaller, more rural community?
That's a great question. Because I think there's a lot of coaches out there that they take the job because they're the PE coach or the English teacher or whoever, that legitimately loves the kids and knows that these kids need a coach. And so they just step in and they do it, you know, and they may not have that experience in their background. So great question. I have found that, you know, as often as you can, get your kids to an exposure type place. Like, you know, you don't have to pay $800 to have them in some showcase. You don't have to. You can, but you don't have to. I've had kids, I've had experiences where we go down, say, to Tucson to play some summer league game. And we're going to play, you know, Florence, again, is a smaller school. It's a 3A high school. I think enrollment's about 800, some change. But we go down and play like a Rincon, who's a big school. You know, I mean, they're a big school. And your kids, have your kids ready. Because if your kids go down and say, coach from one of the colleges there to see somebody on this other team, and, oh, wow, who's this kid from this little school I've never even heard of? You know, that's one way they can get exposure. Social media, be active on social media in a positive way, of course. You want to make sure that the schools that are going to reach out to you, like, or pay attention to you, I mean, make sure that they don't think you're just an idiot or a nut or, you know, a halfwit, because, like, you know, I don't, you're not going to see me hype up some video of a kid making a layup. Like, I'm not doing it. I mean, it's a basic layup, but there is certain film packages you can put together to kind of show, like, look, my kid's efficient in layups, jumpers, inside, outside, sees the court, makes good passes. Like, you can kind of build things that way. You know, a simple way would be to reach out to somebody like me, or there's a bunch of people that do it. I don't take a nickel for anything I do, with exception of on occasion, if I help run one of our big events or something, you know, maybe I'll see a few dollars from it. But anybody I put out any video, I don't make any, I don't ask any money for it. I don't want it. That's not why I do it. And there's a lot of us out there, you know, link up with some of your coaches around. You know, I first year I coached at the high school level, I was coaching a JV game. My first high school game, I went down early with just myself and the JV team. We went down to Tucson to play a super classy Push Ridge team. Coach Lonnie down there is about as class act as you get. You know, it's a Push Ridge is a Christian academy. Oh, my girls seriously were not ready to play ball. I only had a couple girls who'd ever actually played ball, and it was definitely it was tough. We ended up losing. We got 50 balled. It was like 52-2. At one point, we did have one of my girls went to pass the ball cross court, and one of their girls tipped it and it went in. It was that kind of a day, you know.
Yeah.
And after our game was, their girls were still there. They clapped for it. You know, I mean, you almost seemed like, are they patronizing me right now? They try to, no, they were just generally good kids. You know, they were coached the right way, like sportsmanship. And not everybody's like that. Once you get in comp levels, you see different situations. But after the game, I don't link my kids up to having to pray or anything like that. I let it be their choices, you know. I'm always down to participate, whatever they do. But this team asked us, coach, you know, we would like to do a quick little prayer circle to hopefully you and your team and everybody's healthy and gets home okay. And would you like to join us? I was like, you know, I'll let them know, you know, and he's like, perfect. So we joined him and everything. You know, they were very, I mean, super class act, right? And I stayed in contact with him even today. And simple things like, hey, coach, we're having some games down here. We got a couple people coming in from here and here. So then we started playing with those guys or those ladies more. And it's just building networks, you know, same thing. That's how I met the coach from Fort Thomas, you know, Coach Lee Hawes. He's AD. He's just about, you'll catch that dude running a broom as often as, you know, teaching a class. Like he's a do it all kind of guy. It's a small school, but it's just, he knows everybody down in that part of the state.
Yeah.
You know, this guy or gal knows everybody in this part of the state. Like, just build those networks, you know, don't be that coach who's, I have helped by way of, again, just linking people up, as many kids not under my banner as under my banner link up with colleges and have opportunities. Because at the end of the day, hopefully, again, you got to sort out because some of these coaches aren't worth the breadth, honestly. There's some bad ones out there with bad intentions and whatever, or at least they don't align with me. Whether they're bad or not, that's not my decision to make. But for my life and my style and the way I do it, I'm not about it. If you're not all about the kids, then I don't really, we can be cool. It doesn't mean we got to hate each other, but that's not who I surround myself with. Yeah. And so you just make those connections, and next thing you know, hey coach, I got so-and-so over here. This is what he or she did. And, could you maybe reach out for him? Great kid. And that's my first question will always be, what's that kid's character like? And if I don't know somebody who I could directly link your kid up with, I would know somebody who can, or who does know somebody. It's a small world. It's really a small world. We started taking our girls to these tournaments that we knew we may not win them, but we can be competitive. Yeah. It'll be good for us because, playing up in competition is what helps your kids elevate. You can play up too high. Yeah. Well, if you play too high, you gotta know your personnel. Yeah. There's some games out there that are tough for sure. Yeah. You don't necessarily want to get into if you don't have to. But find your lanes, know kind of what makes sense. Like with us playing down at the Globe tournament, their holiday tournament made sense for us the first few years. But after the group we had kind of matured and developed, it didn't make sense to play there anymore. So we went up north and played at Chinley at the Choice Wireless tournament. Oh, wow. Yeah. Man, that's a place. Yeah. I tell you what, coach, our kids at the time probably hadn't played in front of more than a few hundred people. We went up there. We went up to Chinley, and Chinley's facility is like 6,500 capacity, I believe. And of course, we made it through. We powered through, and we were playing Chinley for the championship. And the boys' Chinley team was about to play the championship after us. I believe they told us there was roughly 3,800 people in attendance for our game. And about 11 people were cheering for us out of that. And it's a free tournament. It's a great experience. It's a great chance to go up there and play some tough teams. Res ball is no joke. It's fast paced and run and gun. But those exposures, like we started taking our girls, I reached out to a couple of schools and a couple camps that were like summer camps, like summer, go play some games. I just kind of looked around for something a little bit different that would help team build and just help our kids, And we went to University of San Diego, UCSD, actually, University of California, San Diego. And Coach Vanderveer over there is amazing. She's great. And it was a good camp. It wasn't developmentally, it wasn't a lot going on. It's mostly like you can go out there and hoop against a lot of California's tough teams and learn a few things along the way. But again, the kids, they get the weekend to go to the beach and stay in dorms and just kind of, it's a good trip. And it wasn't too expensive because funding for our team in particular there was not a lot of it around. But fortunately, the school was very supportive. They're like, look, we got vans, you can use the vans. We got the gas. We'll support you guys, but you got to pay for your stuff, which, that's fair. And after that year, I linked up with Point Loma Nazarene University down there in San Diego also, which is amazing. Super fair prices. Kids loved it. You can walk to the beach and you play some tough games. You're playing in front of college coaches, so you're getting exposure. You're playing, and they link you up pretty good. You kind of talk to coach, let them know kind of, look, this is kind of what level we're at. We want to play up, but not ridiculous up. And because you want to be competitive, win or lose. I mean, you get more. It's pretty true. You get more lessons from losses, but nobody really likes to lose. I don't teach anybody to be happy about losing, but it's not the end of your world if you lose a game. You learn from it. You come back and you fix those problems, and you don't do it the next time to the best of your ability. And all of that stuff, that networking is huge. I mean, I just talked to Coach Vanderveer, I don't know, 2 days ago. I mean, her sister's Tara Vanderveer, for crying out loud. You know what I mean? Like, she's real linked up, you know? Yeah, because it's Coach Heidi Vanderveer is at UCSD. And a couple of girls I work with more, I'm not really coaching them so much as I link them up with some people, but like guidance wise, you know, I'm trying to help them out a little bit guidance wise. These are some of the most above level athletes. Like the one girl's, I think she just hit ESPN top 15 for her class. I mean, like these are tough ball players. They're a different level than I'm usually working with. But again, they're going to go where they're going to go. I'm not here to teach them how to make a layup. They already know that, you know. I just work with them. And I think that networking is absolutely key. It's a must. As a coach, you got to have somebody on your staff, whether it's a head coach or your volunteer assistant, whoever it might be, that is driven on getting this kid to college. What does this kid need to do? Oh, she has no left hand. Guess what? We need a left hand. And so that networking, again, I you know, Royce Woolridge does stuff with us sometimes. He played pro ball. He just got put in the Hall of Fame at his high school. I mean, he's a young dude, but the guy is a phenomenal ball player, and he's really good about working with kids. And I linked him up with a couple of kids I know. And, you know, again, that's all about networking,
Right.
you know?
And
it's just –
go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, like, I've found in my experience, and there's you can speak to this too, obviously, as just being in Arizona, there's so many people who are, they're so willing to help, and you know right away, and you know this, like you find like those really good coaches, ones who are all about it, and they'll, like you said, either they'll help you out, or you know they'll get you to the right person. Like there really is there's no reason to feel like you're isolated or on an island. There's so many helpful coaches out there, and I can obviously personally speak to it here in the state of Arizona, and I know you can as well.
Absolutely. And, you know, women's basketball in Arizona is really blowing up right now.
Yep. And I wanted to ask
how many girls we've got going Division I right now. I just saw right now that, you know, Jenna Sai from the Monsoon up there at Valley Vista, that she just won Player of the Year, you know. And that girl
I wanted to ask you before I forgot about, what do you think, not just coaches in general, what do you think we can do to help continue to spotlight and raise awareness on the women's side, and give that side of basketball the attention that it definitely deserves?
Well, you know, I think the biggest thing is actually keep teaching these kids, and in this case, specifically young ladies, how to be good ball players. You know, I mean, obviously good people in general, yes, 100%. But athletically speaking, the biggest thing I believe that hinders girls basketball from getting a lot more attention is typically, not always, but typically, girls basketball is much more about fundamentals. If you watch good girls basketball, they're typically very fundamental. Not very many girls can play above the rim. So they're not relying on their athleticism. They're relying on skills. Whereas the boys' side, and this is quite a debate I've been having lately with some friends, that a lot of guys, they can slack because they can jump out of the gym and they can kind of compensate. Well, when you play a fundamental game, compensating is not where it's at. Like, you need to have an IQ, you need to be committed, and your attitude. Those are killer. If you go hard every time, no coach in the country is going to be mad at you if you go hard every play. But, you know, you get to see some of these programs that, again, I think it's going to start with the coach, start from the top, because most things do. Demand that your players are fundamental. Make a regular layup. Don't, just because I can make it this way, coach. No. Make a regular layup. Make a good jump shot. Yeah. Don't settle for some two-handed jump shot that you know you can fix over a summer. You know, really put in the time to help these kids have integrity to the way they approach the game, and it'll transfer the way they approach the game of life. Like, you know, it's huge. You know, I think that would make all the difference in the world for a lot of these ladies and how they got certain respects. You know, it's how you play the game. You know, you can be you can be flashy and you can do all these things, and that's great when it works. But it looks terrible, and you get chewed out, or you go sit next to me on the bench whenever it doesn't work. So
Yeah.
it's like I had a kid tell me, this girl told me I think she was a freshman. She loved to watch YouTube and learn things. And to this day, she called me, I don't know, it's been a couple months now, but she's coming back from ACL injury. And she told me, don't worry, coach, I'm still going to go play pro. And I don't know, brother. I tell you what, this one, she's different. I don't know what would surprise me with her. She's a great kid, but she's a dreamer. What she's doing behind the back layups. I said, that's great. I said, when it works, people are going to be hyped and everything else. I'm going to tell you, hey, good job. When it doesn't work, you're going to get chewed out. People are going to clown you, and then you're going to be sitting next to me on the bench. So which one do you think is more important, to be fancy or to go get it done? And for the most part, that kind of solved that conversation, kind of ended it. But,
I feel like this also means we as coaches need to make sure that when we're spotlighting or promoting things that we see on the women's side, that we are really embracing and promoting like the really solid like fundamentals that so many of our women have, even if it doesn't necessarily seem like flashy on like Twitter or social media, but like praising and recognizing and really spotlighting just those good fundamental skills that a lot of our girls have. I feel like seems to be really important as well.
100%. And, how many times have you seen a kid whose videos are amazing, guy or girl, doesn't really matter gender wise, but they're cone drilling the hell out of it. Like you can tell they've put in a lot of time with cones and chairs and trash cans and all the other things in the gym. Great. But put somebody in front of them who moves. And then what do? They double dribble, they travel. And not always, but a lot of times they get exposed that way. Or you got somebody who's just kind of shadowing them. Put somebody in front of them who's going to make them work, like challenge them. Because I can stand in front of any kid in the country and kind of shadow them, and that's great. They're going to look amazing. But then take me out and put in like an all-region top defender or somebody who's got them handles and who's going to come at you, and they can't do anything. They're on an island, Yeah. Not to mention, matter of fact, since touching off of that, like a lot of coaches don't want to see you handle the ball for 15 seconds in a row, Show these kids playing good team basketball and how they can plug into your team. Another thing I did with a couple kids too is, so I knew this one kid that I was trying to help out and things went well, actually. I showcased, this was actually a guy, but showed some ISO plays. So he had the individual one-on-one, showed the team concept, much more of a facilitating type view, And on another clip that was done up separate, was like more of a attacker, killer, slashing, coming at you, like do it all, one person kind of like not because you want them to do it all, but they can do it all kind of thing, And I got a guy I'm good friends with. He played ball, big kid, 6'10" dude. He played Division I basketball, and he's back in the state for a little while now. Solid dude. He wants to get kind of involved in helping some kids, and like he'll every once in a while I'll call him up and like he'll help speak to. I'm gonna probably actually do a piece about him here pretty soon, just because he's got some really good insights.
Yeah.
And he wants to help out with like, look, this is what college recruiting is about. My experience. This is what I've seen, with me, with some of my teammates and certain things, because I think a lot of these kids don't really know. I was talking to an NAIA coach a few weeks back, and this guy told me, and he's a good dude, he told me, what do you think about so-and-so? And I was like, the kid can hoop. I was like, he could be a little bit of work. He could be a real solid piece, Yeah. He goes, I talked to him a couple of weeks back. He told me, appreciate it. And he offered him. He told him, appreciate it, coach, but I'm going D1. like, that's cool, but he's not. He doesn't have D1 offers. He doesn't have, it's not a reality. And even if it was a reality, be respectful and appreciate the offer that's there, because you don't know when it might dry up.
Yeah.
With the portal and back to where you started earlier, the COVID, and that COVID damaged at least 5 years of classes. I mean, we haven't seen the end of the COVID ripple in the college world with transfer portals and recruiting and eligibilities and stuff, probably for another, I bet you another 2 years, probably the 2025s, maybe even. And, it all goes back to, again, when you see these young ladies out here doing things, and to, I guess, back to your original question, what are they doing with themselves? Because again, the coach you talk to here, oh, I'm impressed with, such and such. She's tough. She sees this. What do you think? Well, when we played her, she had 30 points, but was disrespectful. She was it, ultimately just carry the right attitude in general and just really go out there. I mean, because like you're selling yourself, you want somebody to give you money, scholarships, etc. Why do they want you? Because you can score 20 or because you have a 4.5 GPA and you can score 20, things like that. Like definitely always include a good GPA, if possible, and just really try to showcase, like almost tailor what you're putting out there to where you want to be,
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
yeah.
If you're trying to reach out for Stanford, don't show me some 3.0 GPA because that's not happening. It's just not.
We'll get you in the door.
Yeah, exactly. They literally can't let you in the door with a 3.0. They can't.
Yeah. Do your research. That's great. Coach, to wrap up, there's a couple questions that I ask every guest, and so I'll go ahead and get started with this first one. What is either a coaching or a professional moment of yours that you can share that you think others listening would be able to learn from?
Ooh, that's a good question. For me personally, I think it comes back to like coaching moments. I could put a few of them together, but there's a moment in every coach, and I mean, to me, it's significant. To other people, it may not be. There's a coaching moment where you see a kid go out there, and I mean, in a game that matters, and they do something that you taught them, and it helps them succeed. To me, and that's in life too, of course, but to me, that it's just all the value in the world. I can't express. I don't even think I put words to like how great it feels to know that you helped a kid grow, a young person grow. It's same thing in life with my kids. You see them do well. My daughter's an ASU graduate. It makes you so proud. And then along with it, when you see that kid turn around and then also start teaching something that you taught them, and like it's like a circle of life where you see it keep spinning or going down, and it's almost like the reach out to hand to somebody else and pay it forward kind of concept. But I think with that is a little bit of I don't know if compassion is the right word, because seriously, like we'll go compassion. The right amount of compassion could change somebody's life, and in turn, that compassion you showed, empathy you taught, tolerance you shared and taught could make it generations down, because that kid that you worked with then now learned from that and said, man, I can do it this way. And then it goes down, and then generation, to me, I know it might not quite hit home with everybody, but to me, learn to teach the people you have and just go from there, because to me, that's just the thing. It's bigger than you. It's about that group mentality where I helped this person, they helped two people. Now I've helped three people,
Hands like that,
I really just feel that that's the most important thing, especially this day and age. So many people are out for themselves and it's all about negativity. And I hate it. We can make so much more positivity in this world by just doing some simple things like that.
Yeah.
Little kindness goes a long way. And if nothing else, understanding, because sometimes understanding is that this kid may not make it. That's fine. That's not wrong. If you don't play college basketball, your life's not over. But
Yeah.
if you learn how to deal with people in general, your life will be okay. It really just, and I know that's a little bit different than a lot of people would answer that question, because I don't know. I've been all over this country, a few other countries, and done a lot of things in life. And to me, the two most rewarding things I've ever done in my life is being a father, and also then be a positive influence in other kids' lives. There's nothing like it. Nothing like it.
Well, that's great. I 100% agree with you on that. And what you just shared would probably go really well for my last question. Well, it's not really a question, but I call it the 60-second soapbox. But I won't put a timer on you. I don't put a timer on anymore. It's your platform to get out your final idea, kind of a closing message, just sort of a closing thought that you want to leave the listeners with. Again, I feel that you did such a good job with your previous answer, but I'm going to give you your soapbox anyway, Coach. I'm going to kind of let you take it from here. So the floor is yours.
Okay. Yeah, I can go on all day long, Coach. I tell you. Honestly, I would love to see more coaches hold these kids accountable, but along the way, teach them how to be accountable. Don't just throw them something and yell at them for failing. Give them the tools to succeed in life. If you have the tools to succeed in life and you can do things, don't do their homework for them. Don't get them a passing grade because you need them to play in the game on Friday. Teach them how to be accountable. Give them the skills. If they don't have the skills, teach them the skills. Be accountable. Be a representative for these youngsters, and let them know you got their back. But the same way you're there to pick them up when they fall, you also got to be there to check them whenever they're not on the right path. You got to keep pushing these kids to be better people in general, and reward them when they're good people. Hey, appreciate that. Good looks. Talk them up, and be ready. If you're going to get in the game of coaching, get in the game of coaching for the right reason, not some stupid little stipend you get or whatever have you, or some cool record. Nobody cares about that. When you're dead, your record doesn't mean anything. When you're gone, your record doesn't matter. How many people's lives you can affect, there is no words or measure you can put on that. And that goes both ways, because you can also ruin a kid if you're not careful. But be there for them. If you're going to coach varsity sports in Arizona or anywhere in the country, the world, if you're coaching varsity sports, your job is to help get these kids to college, free or reduced education, and continue succeeding and learning and growing. It's not to be there and say, well, I coach you, so you do the rest. That's not how it works. You're a part of their team. It's a family concept. A lot of these kids don't have anybody else preaching that to them. So do your job. Take advantage of the right situations for the right reasons. That's awesome. Good with me. Anybody can always reach out to me, Coach. I'm on that Twitter. I think my number, my email, I think everything on there. Anything I can help, I answer.
Excellent, Coach. I want to thank you for talking about not just what it is that you do as a contributor for ArizonaPreps and all the great players and coaches you get to talk to, but also your experience coaching as well, and just kind of your general insights you have from your time coaching. And there's a lot of things here I think that we as coaches can take from this and really make sure that we're putting our players in the best position to be successful, not just while they're in our program, but hopefully set them up to be successful later down the line, whether that they go to college or they take other paths that don't involve basketball. So thank you. Safe travels, I know, because you travel a lot in your work and you're out and about seeing a bunch of stuff. And thank you for spending some time, Coach. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you having me on. Look forward to talking to you in the future.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. And thank you so much for listening. This was another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast, and we will see you guys next time.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Make sure to connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.